Namaste and welcome to today's session of Addwit
Vyavsaay Upanishad.
online reading groups. On a popular demand of many of those potential readers who have not yet purchased the book, I am going to take up the discussion number 1 for today's session. Let's dive in straight into it.
So, as you are aware that this book Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad itself is currently available only in Hindi, but I am doing this online reading group sessions in a combination of English and Hindi, and I am doing offline reading groups also in combination of Hindi and English as per the audience choice. As you are also aware that the symbol or the representative logo for the book has been altered, it has been redesigned, and I will get into the details of what is the logic and rationale and thinking behind this particular logo, which is basically a combination of two shapes. One, if you can notice, is the outer 8-sided polygon with rounded corners, and this inner design is something which represents objective or goal, so to say. I will get into the details of what does it mean or what does it imply in one of the next sessions. Today let us get straight into the discussion number 1. Here is the discussion number 1, and for those of you who know about the writing style which has been adopted in Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad, it comprises of the headings written in haiku style of poems. Haiku style is a Japanese style of writing poem where there are 3 lines. More about it in another episode. And like you can see, this is discussion number 1. There are 225 discussions within Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad. So the first discussion, the heading reads, रुके नहीं, थके नहीं, अपरोक्ष अनंत, व्यवसाय के योगदान अनेक. रुके नहीं, do not take a pause. थके नहीं, do not get tired. अपरोक्ष अनंत, indirect and infinite, व्यवसाय के योगदान अनेक. The contributions that an enterprise makes are just as limitless. Now you will be able to notice here that Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad has been written with the curiosity element on the mind. Each discussion, yes, more or less each discussion starts with a pertinent question. And for this first discussion, the question which has been posed is, सामान्यतः व्यवसाय को केवल लाभ के साथ जोड़कर देखा जाता है, क्या यह दृष्टिकोण उचित है? This sentence, if translated, will mean that in general, the perception about the business is that it is something done with the motive of making profit only. Is this perception even logical? एक बार रुक कर कल्पना करें, यदि समाज में उद्योगपति और व्यापारी नहीं होंगे तो जीवन कितना दूभर हो जाएगा? Stop for a moment and try to imagine if there were no industrialists and no traders in the society, how difficult our life will become. उद्यमी वर्ग का योगदान उत्पाद बेचने और लाभ कमाने से एक कदम आगे है. The contributions that the enterprising community, enterprising society makes is much more than just selling products and services and making profits. एम्प्लॉयमेंट के अवसर उत्पन्न करके समाज में स्थिरता लाना और नए नए उत्पाद बनाकर हमारे जीवन को सरल बना देना और अनेक अन्य योगदान. That means here I am reminding everybody that it is the enterprising community which creates new opportunities for employment and thereby ensures that there is stability in the society. And also they create new products which make our life easier. Apart from these two, there are quite a few other contributions also, which we will slowly get into as we progress in the book. इसीलिए मैं उद्यमी वर्ग को सेना से कम नहीं समझता, सेना देश की सीमा पर सुरक्षा स्थापित करती है और व्यापारी वर्ग देश के अंदर संपन्नता, स्थिरता और सक्षमता की रक्षा करते हैं। चर्चा क्रमांक 197 भी देखें। इसीलिए मैं उद्यमी वर्ग को सेना से कम नहीं समझता। Because of the contributions made by the enterprising community, I do not consider them anything less than the army on the frontiers. सेना देश की सीमा पर सुरक्षा स्थापित करती है। The army ensures the security of the national borders. और व्यापारी वर्ग देश के अंदर संपन्नता, स्थिरता और सक्षमता की रक्षा करते हैं। Whereas the enterprising community makes sure that within the nation there is संपन्नता which means prosperity, स्थिरता which means stability और सक्षमता which means efficacy, which I have also discussed further in discussion number 197 as the discussions build up. इस पुस्तक में मैंने यहाँ तक कहा है कि एक उद्यमी का परिवार देश के लिए एक यूनिवर्सिटी से भी अधिक महत्वपूर्ण इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होता है। I have gone to the extent of saying that the family of an entrepreneur is more important infrastructure for a nation, more important than compared to university as the soft infrastructure. परिवार के परिवेश में हम वैसे भी अधिक सीखते हैं और यह बात व्यापारी परिवारों पर विशेषतः लागू होती है जो औपचारिक शिक्षा पर बहुत आश्रित नहीं रहना चाहते। I have compared the family of an entrepreneur with university because परिवार के परिवेश में हम वैसे भी अधिक सीखते हैं। So long as learning is concerned, learning, so to say, we learn more in the environment of our own family, and learning within the environment of family is more pertinent to, more relevant to the families of an entrepreneur who do not have an inclination to depend too much on the formal education. तदापि क्योंकि पिछले 2-3 दशकों में आर्थिक सामाजिक परिदृश्य में भारी परिवर्तन हुआ है, इसलिए हो ये रहा है कि मध्यम वर्ग के व्यवसायी परिवार की 2 पीढ़ियों के बीच खींचतान वाला वातावरण है। In this sentence, I talk about what is happening in the past 2 or 3 decades. तदापि क्योंकि पिछले 2-3 दशकों में आर्थिक सामाजिक परिदृश्य में भारी परिवर्तन हुआ है, there has been kind of drastic transformation in the economic and social environment. Paridrishya means the play and interplay of the factors in the environment. Because in the previous 2 or 3 decades, the economic and social environment has undergone major transformations. Because of this, what has happened is that in a family of small entrepreneur, there is a kind of strain and stress between the 2 generations. And what is that strain or stress? I am explaining in the next sentence. थोड़ी निराशा है क्योंकि नवयुवा पीढ़ी उस कमर तोड़ पद्धति से व्यापार नहीं करना चाहती जैसा पिछली पीढ़ी को करना पड़ा था। Because the new generation does not want to get into the business which requires too much of hard work, so to say, कमर तोड़ पद्धति। और पिछली पीढ़ी, that means the earlier generation, the older generation, और पिछली पीढ़ी यह नहीं समझ पा रही है कि नए परिवेश में नवयुवा पीढ़ी का मार्गदर्शन कैसे करें और उनसे क्या अपेक्षाएं रखें। And the elder generation is unable to understand, is unable to figure out that in new environment, how to guide the younger generation and what kind of expectations to keep from them. Expectations, अपेक्षाएं। Before proceeding ahead, as a side note from the text, I would like to add for our readers that in the previous edition of Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad, I had addressed only this particular problem of what we can call continuity of business within the family from previous generation to the next generation, what we can call in Hindi as nirantarta, the continuity factor. And most of the business families know that how difficult it is to sustain business. Research has indicated that most of the family businesses, most of the small businesses are likely to be winded up within 5 to 10 years. And even the most successful business enterprises find it very difficult to last beyond 2 or 3 generations. So although this first edition was written, the continuity of business being in the center of thought process, but the new edition which you are going to get has 3 factors: continuity, how to raise an ethical business, and the Atmnirbharata, In Hindi, I can say it like this: Nirantarta, Naitikta, Atmnirbharata. More about it in one of the next sessions. Let's continue. We were talking about the stress and strain between two generations. इस खिंचाव का समाधान है संवाद. The solution for this strain lies in communication. बिजनेस के कुछ मूलभूत सिद्धांत तनिक भी परिवर्तित नहीं हुए हैं जो नवयुवा पीढ़ी को समझना होगा. There are certain principles of business that has not changed, which are timeless, which is something that the new generation, the younger generation needs to understand. और कुछ अन्य सिद्धांत आज पोस्टकार्ड के समान अप्रचलित, आउटडेटेड हो गए हैं जो पिछली पीढ़ी को समझना होगा. And there are certain principles and practices of the business which has become outdated like a postcard, which the old generation, the senior generation needs to understand. यही समझने समझाने के लिए संवाद. The kind of dialogue the two generations must get into is precisely to get what has become outdated and what is timeless. अवसर अनंत हैं, रुके नहीं, थके नहीं. The business, as always and as usual, continues to present opportunities which are limitless. As a business family, please do not pause. Please do not feel tired. यह पुस्तक दोनों पीढ़ियों के बीच एक अनौपचारिक, निरंतर और सकारात्मक संभाषण अर्थात वार्तालाप, चर्चा, संवाद, डिस्कोर्स चलता रहे, इस दिशा में एक छोटा सा प्रयास है. This book is a small contribution, a baby step to ensure that the two generations in a business family engage in an anaupcharik, which means informal dialogue, nirantar, which means a continuous dialogue, a perpetual dialogue, and sakaratmak, which means an affirmative sambhashan dialogue. This book is a very small effort, a baby step towards ensuring that the two generations in a business family engage in a dialogue which is informal, which is perpetual, and which is affirmative. वैसे भी यह मानव सिद्धांत के लिए एक सिद्ध, एस्टैब्लिश्ड, अलिखित सिद्धांत है कि बातों बातों में हम बहुत कुछ सीख जाते हैं. Because even otherwise, this is an unwritten rule for the human development, unwritten yet established, that बातों बातों में हम बहुत कुछ सीख जाते हैं. We learn more through informal discussions that keep happening around us. बातों बातों में हम बहुत कुछ सीख जाते हैं. परिवार के परिवेश में हम वैसे भी अधिक सीखते हैं. It says that we learn more from informal discussions. I'm talking about, without saying it, I'm giving an indication towards that we learn more from informal discussions rather than learning from lectures. Plus, परिवार के परिवेश में we learn more from the very environment of the family we live in. For the readers, I'd like to add that there are two types, so to say, of learning. One is what we attribute towards formal learning or formal education, and the other is what we can call social learning or informal learning, something that contributes to our personality and the traits, so to say. सभी आवश्यक बातें मैं चर्चा में ले आया हूं, कठिन हो तो भी, चुनौतीपूर्ण हो तो भी, क्योंकि महत्वपूर्ण बातों को टाल देने से बात बिगड़ती ही है. Like I have said it in the preface itself, let me scroll up for you and read that sentence. The first sentence reads, उद्यम और व्यवसाय जटिल विषय हैं, अनेक प्रश्न और कौतूहल होते हैं, सफल होने से पहले और सफल होने के बाद भी. The business is a very complex subject matter. That is why in that particular sentence I have said something like this, that सभी आवश्यक बातें मैं चर्चा में ले आया हूं. There are lots of subject matters, there are a lot of themes and a lot of topics which do not get covered in the formal business management education and which also don't come up in the normal discussions within the family. That is why I have said that सभी आवश्यक बातें, whatever is required to run a small business successfully, to run a flourishing small business successfully, I have brought it into the discussion in Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad. Even if the topic is difficult, even if it is quite challenging to discuss that topic, because महत्वपूर्ण बातों को टाल देने से बात बिगड़ती ही है. When we avoid or when we postpone discussing those matters which are really important, avoiding or postponing creates further complications. मेरा प्रयास है कि मैं कुछ सिखाऊं नहीं, मात्र एक संवाद स्थापित करने के लिए सामग्री दूं, एक प्रामाणिक संवाद, क्योंकि मैं स्वयं अभी भी इस पुस्तक में लिखी हुई अनेक बातों को क्रियान्वित करने की प्रक्रिया में हूं। मेरा प्रयास है कि इट इज माई एफर्ट दैट आई शुड नॉट साउंड लाइक टीचिंग समथिंग. I am only giving sufficient material, authentic material, so that conversation can be established, dialogue could be established. Dialogue between whom? Between the elder generation and younger generation within a family. I am avoiding to sound as if I am teaching because I am myself in the process of implementing certain ideas which I have presented in this book. किस समय कौन से विचार पर क्रियान्वयन करना है, यह समयानुसार सजगता के साथ लिया हुआ निर्णय माइंडफुल डिसीजन होता है. We may have hundreds of ideas bubbling in our mind, but what to act upon is something which is a mindful decision, something we decide taking into account the timing factor, समयानुसार सजगता के साथ लिया हुआ निर्णय. A decision taken with the timing factor on the mind. इस पुस्तक में कुछ ऐसे विचार भी हैं जिन पर मुझे स्वयं अभी क्रियान्वयन करना शेष है, किंतु यदि इस पुस्तक की एक वाक्य भी आपको ठीक इसी समय एक निर्णय पर ला सकी, दिशा दे सकी, तो इस पुस्तक का उद्देश्य पूरा हो जाता है. Like I said in previous sentence, that there are certain ideas in this book which I am yet to implement upon. However, if for you that same idea makes sense right in this moment of time, if that idea is good enough for getting you to a decision right now, then the objective of this book is accomplished. दो पीढ़ियों के बीच अनौपचारिक, निरंतर और सकारात्मक संवाद कैसे स्थापित होगा? This question itself is quite complicated and challenging, that how the two generations in a family will engage in a dialogue which is अनौपचारिक, informal, निरंतर, perpetual और सकारात्मक, which is affirmative. कैसे स्थापित होगा? This is quite a challenging process to accomplish nowadays. इस प्रश्न का उत्तर है उपनिषद. My response to this question is that Upanishad is the technique or technology with which this kind of informal, perpetual and affirmative dialogues can be established. मुझे संज्ञान है आप इस समय सोच रहे हैं उपनिषद आज के युग में. इस पर हम चर्चा करेंगे आगामी डिस्कशन में, आगामी चर्चा में. All of us know that the terminology Upanishad is associated with spirituality, scripture and something which has become ancient or outdated. However, how and why Upanishad continues to remain relevant and pertinent and even timely even today, that is what we will discuss in the next discussion of this particular book. And for those readers who are academically inclined, let me add one small terminology here, that Upanishad is more a pedagogy. It is not really about the content, it is about the methodology through which we distribute the knowledge, distribute the content, distribute the wisdom. That is what we will discuss in the next session. Throughout the book, you will find this particular feature titled Ek Drishtikon, which basically means one more perspective, one more angle towards whatever we have discussed. And in this particular discussion, I have concluded by saying that सामान्यतः व्यवसाय को केवल लाभ के साथ जोड़कर देखा जाता है, the way we started the discussion, अथवा दूसरी ओर रिस्क के साथ. There are people who feel that only the greedy people, greedy for profits, they are the ones who engage in business. On the other hand, there are people who think that business is too risky. क्या हम उद्यमिता को ही समझ पाए हैं? This he is some stress which I am adding while reading. If you suggest, I will add this extra stress in the next edition. क्या हम उद्यमिता को समझ पाए हैं? It is quite possible that the entrepreneur himself has not understood what उद्यमिता or the spirit of enterprise is all about. अद्वैत व्यवसाय उपनिषद फ्रेमवर्क, एक छोटा सा प्रयास. I'll request the readers and everybody who is joining me in these sessions that please do not look at Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad as a book. Look at it as a framework. What is framework? We will discuss perhaps in one of the next sessions. एक छोटा सा प्रयास. This is a small effort to present an idea about the spirit of entrepreneurship. That's all for today's session of Addwit Vyavsaay Upanishad reading groups. If you have any questions, please feel free to send an email on care@adwit.org. If you have not bought the book yet, please buy it from the link given below this video or scan this QR code. You will be directed towards this particular link on Addwit shopping page. We will meet in the next episode of reading groups once again. Namaste.